Welcome to our deep dive into mindfulness.
Mindfulness.
Today we're taking Mindfulness in Plain English by Bhante Gunaratana and
Yeah,
extracting the wisdom so you can actually use it.
right.
Think of it as Mindfulness 101, but like the really cool insider version.
You know, people toss the word mindfulness around a lot these days,
Yeah,
but these excerpts remind us it's not just a trendy meditation app.
right.
It's a path to genuine freedom from suffering.
Okay. Love that.
Yeah,
But before we get to freedom,
sure.
let's start with the basics.
Okay.
What exactly is mindfulness?
Think of it as a pause button for your life.
Okay.
Before you say something, do something, even think something,
Yeah.
you hit pause.
hmm
Then you ask,
Yeah.
is this going to cause suffering for me or anyone else?
So it's like that moment before you send a fiery email, you
Yeah.
take a breath and think, maybe not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mindfulness creates that space for conscious choice.
Right.
And from these excerpts, it seems like it's also about getting really good at noticing change.
Yeah.
Like how our bodies, minds, even the world around us is in constant flux.
Right. Because usually we're so focused on what's next
Right.
that we totally miss what's happening now.
Bhante Gunaratana actually compares it to being at a show.
Okay.
So fixated on the next act, we forget it's all a performance.
Uh-huh.
Mindfulness helps us step back, become the audience, and watch life unfold without getting swept up in the drama.
Okay. That's a fantastic image.
Yeah.
So how do we actually do this mindfulness thing?
Right.
Where do we even begin?
He lays out 4 foundations of mindfulness.
Okay.
And don't worry, we're going to unpack all of them today.
Okay.
The first one is mindfulness of the body.
Ooh, mindfulness of the body. I'm intrigued.
Yes.
Tell me more.
Well, the Buddha taught about recognizing the body in the body,
Okay.
which basically means seeing the body not as one big thing,
Uh-huh.
but as 32 individual parts.
30
What we call
great.
puzzle. Yeah, he lists everything. Hair, teeth, organs, even the stuff inside our organs,
That's a lot.
right? It's a whole inventory, which seems overwhelming.
Yeah.
But there's a great analogy.
Okay.
He compares trying to be mindful of your entire body at once
Yeah.
to trying to grab a whole pile of oranges.
You just end up with a big mess.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So instead, we start with something simpler, more manageable.
Right.
And that's where the breath comes in.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
The breath.
The breath.
Tell me everything.
It's brilliant, actually.
Okay.
The breath embodies that body in the body concept.
Okay.
It's always changing.
Uh,
Inhaling, exhaling a tiny reflection of impermanence happening right under our noses.
so instead of just breathing unconsciously,
Uh-huh.
we're actually noticing the breath.
You got it.
Okay.
The feeling of air at your nostrils, chest, rising belly, expanding,
Yeah.
even the subtle pauses between breaths.
And then there's that crazy idea. Bhante Gunaratana mentions that even walls breathe,
I know, it's wild.
expanding and contracting with the seasons.
Right.
It makes you realize this rhythm is happening everywhere.
It's true. This constant pulse connects us to literally everything around us.
Wow.
Now, I know we're getting deep into the breath here.
Wait, before we go there,
Okay.
I have to ask it.
Sure.
What's the point of all this? Like,
Mhm.
what are the benefits of being mindful?
Bhante Gunaratana lays out 5 spiritual accomplishments that come from consistent practice.
Okay.
Are you ready for this?
Hit me with them.
First, you become fully present.
Okay.
Like right here, right now,
Yeah.
no dwelling on the past or freaking out about the future.
Okay, sign me up for that.
Right.
What else?
You develop a deep understanding of impermanence.
Okay.
And that's where the breath comes in.
Uh-huh.
By watching it change every second,
Yeah.
you start to grasp that everything changes, including ourselves.
So no more clinging to how things should be or wishing for do-overs?
Exactly. And that leads to the third accomplishment,
All right.
seeing the selfless nature of everything.
Oh,
This gets a bit complex, but it involves observing the 5 aggregates.
Whoa. 5 aggregates.
Yeah.
What in the world are those?
Don't worry, we'll break those down later.
Okay.
Now think of them as the building blocks of our experience:
Yeah.
form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness.
Okay, so by paying attention to these aggregates,
Yeah,
we start to see that the self isn't this solid thing, but something a bit more fluid.
exactly.
Okay.
And when you see that,
Yeah.
you experience the 4th accomplishment,
Okay.
detachment.
Detachment.
Because when you realize nothing is permanent, you stop clinging so tightly.
That sounds incredibly freeing.
It is.
What's the 5th accomplishment?
Yeah.
The grand finale.
Liberation from suffering.
Okay.
It's the ultimate goal of mindfulness.
Right.
By releasing our grip on things,
Mm-hmm.
we break free from the cycle of suffering that clinging creates.
Wow. So mindfulness isn't just about feeling calmer.
No,
It's a path to profound insight and freedom.
it absolutely is.
Wow.
And all the techniques we're exploring are like steps on that path.
Okay, now I'm even more curious about the breath.
Yes.
What else does Bhante Gunaratana say about mindfulness of breathing?
Well, he encourages us to go beyond just the physical sensations
Okay.
and start noticing the four elements present in the breath.
Wait, the elements?
Yes.
Like earth, air, fire, water?
Exactly.
Okay.
He says each breath contains all four.
But how do you actually see the elements in your breath?
Yeah.
That seems a bit abstract.
Think of it this way.
Okay.
Earth is the solidity, the tangibility of your breath.
Okay.
Water is the moisture,
Mm.
the coolness.
Uh-huh.
Heat is, well, the temperature.
Yeah.
Air is the movement, the flow.
It's just like we're turning into breath scientists.
Right. And by paying attention to these subtle qualities,
Mm-hmm.
we actually deepen our connection to the breath and to our bodies as a whole.
This is fascinating.
It is.
So we've explored mindfulness of breathing while sitting,
Right.
but we don't spend our whole lives just sitting and breathing, do we?
Definitely not.
Okay.
Bhante Gunaratana says it's just as important to be mindful while standing, walking, and lying down.
Mindful standing, walking, lying down.
Yes,
Intriguing.
it is.
What does that even look like?
Well, take standing.
Okay.
He talks about noticing the energy it takes to hold yourself upright,
Uh-huh.
the feeling of your feet on the ground, even the subtle interplay of elements within your body.
So even standing in line at the grocery store can be a mindfulness practice.
Exactly.
What about walking?
He suggests breaking down each step into 9 distinct movements,
Uh-huh.
paying close attention to the sensations.
Wow.
It's about slowing down, almost like walking in slow motion, to fully appreciate the miracle of walking.
I love that.
Yeah.
Turning a simple walk into this mindful experience,
Right.
but lying down?
Yeah.
Isn't that just, preparing for sleep?
It can be, but you can also bring mindfulness to it.
Okay.
Notice the intention to lie down, the feeling of your body making contact with the bed, how the elements manifest as you rest.
This is amazing.
Yeah.
It's like mindfulness isn't something you do.
Right.
It's a way of being present in every moment, no matter what you're doing.
Exactly. And the teachings give us a framework for doing just that.
Okay, you mentioned those 5 aggregates earlier.
Yes.
I have to admit, I'm still a bit fuzzy on how they relate to mindfulness.
Remember, they're like the ingredients that make up our experience.
Okay.
Form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness.
And understanding these helps us understand the self.
Exactly. By carefully observing them,
Okay.
we start to see that the self isn't a fixed thing,
Right.
but a constantly changing combination of these 5 elements.
Okay, let's break them down, starting with form.
Okay, form is all about the physical world.
Okay.
Our bodies,
Yeah.
the objects around us, even the sensations we experience,
Uh-huh.
like the feeling of the breath.
So when we're doing that breath meditation, noticing the rise and fall of our chest,
Yes.
that's observing the aggregate of form.
Exactly. Now let's move on to feeling.
Okay.
This includes all sensations and emotions, pleasant, unpleasant,
Yeah.
the whole spectrum.
Like feeling peaceful during meditation or stressed out about work deadline?
Yes. The key is to observe these feelings without judging them or getting attached,
Mm-hmm.
knowing they're always changing.
Got it. What about perception?
Perception is the mind's labeling system.
Okay.
It's how we recognize and categorize everything.
So when I label that feeling of my breath as relaxing or irritating,
Right.
that's perception doing its thing.
Exactly. But here's the thing.
Oh.
Perceptions can be tricky.
Yeah.
They're influenced by our biases, our past experiences, all sorts of things.
This is making more sense.
Good.
Okay, what about mental formation?
That's the thought bubble above our heads.
Okay.
All our thoughts, beliefs, opinions, judgments,
Mm-hmm.
they all fall under mental formation.
So even those random thoughts that pop up during meditation, like, did I leave the stove on?
Yep, those are mental formations.
Yes.
Mindfulness helps us notice them without getting swept away.
Right.
And that brings us to the final aggregate, consciousness.
Okay, consciousness, the big word.
Think of it as the awareness that experiences everything else.
Okay.
It's like the stage on which the play of form,
Yeah.
feeling, perception, and mental formations unfolds.
Wow, that's a powerful image.
It is.
And mindfulness helps us become aware of this whole play to see how it's all constantly changing.
Exactly. It's about seeing the impermanence of it all, even of the self we think we are.
Okay, so we've got mindfulness of the body,
Mm.
and now we've got the 5 aggregates.
Yes.
What's next on this mindfulness journey?
Bhante Gunaratana goes deeper into the idea of impermanence,
Okay.
like how to really understand it,
Yeah.
not just intellectually,
Uh-huh.
but in our bones.
Okay.
And that's where things get really interesting.
Okay. I'm definitely ready to explore that.
All right.
But maybe we can pause here for now.
Sounds good. We've covered a lot of ground already.
We have. I'm excited to continue this conversation in our next deep dive.
Me too.
Okay, so we left off talking about impermanence.
Yeah.
And I have to admit, it's a concept I struggle with. Like,
Yeah.
I know everything changes,
Right.
but I still get attached to things staying the same,
Sure.
especially the good stuff.
It's so human to want to hold on to the good.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But Bhante Gunaratana says that clinging to anything,
Uh-huh.
good or bad,
Okay.
is what causes suffering.
Because eventually it's all going to change anyway.
Exactly. Remember the 5 aggregates we talked about?
Right.
Well, each one is made up of 3 tiny moments,
Okay.
arising, enduring, and passing away.
So it's like nothing actually stays the same.
Yeah.
Not even for a second.
It's a constant flow,
Right.
and mindfulness helps us see that.
Okay.
But here's the thing.
Yeah.
Intellectually grasping impermanence isn't enough.
Okay.
We have to actually experience it.
Okay. How do we do that?
He uses this great example of smiling.
Okay.
He differentiates between a genuine smile,
Uh-huh.
like when you hear a good joke,
Yeah.
and a forced smile, like when you're trying to be polite.
Oh, I've definitely done both.
Right.
But what does smiling have to do with impermanence?
Think about it.
Okay.
The forced smile feels weird and uncomfortable because you're trying to hold on to it,
Right.
make it last.
Yeah.
But the natural smile arises, lingers for a moment, and then fades away on its own.
So the key is to not cling to the smile.
Exactly. It's about enjoying it while it's there, knowing it's impermanent, and being okay with it fading.
Wow, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's like trying to hold on to a handful of sand.
Yes.
The tighter you squeeze, the more slips through your fingers.
Perfect analogy. Now, Bhante Gunaratana also gives specific examples of how to apply this to everyday stuff,
Okay.
like eating.
Okay, so how do you eat mindfully?
He suggests reciting a little reflection before you start.
Okay.
It's a reminder that the purpose of eating is to nourish your body,
Right.
not for entertainment or emotional comfort.
So no more mindless snacking while binge watching TV.
Right. It's about slowing down, savoring each bite,
Uh-huh.
and noticing the flavors and textures.
Okay.
It's about being fully present with the experience of nourishing yourself.
And I'm guessing that helps with, not overeating.
Absolutely. By tuning in to your body's signals,
Right.
you can actually tell when you're full and stop before you get that overly stuffed feeling.
This is so cool.
Yeah.
It's like all these little things we do every day can become mindfulness practices.
Right.
Speaking of Bhante Gunaratana, also talks about meditating on the 32 parts of the body.
Yes.
Can you tell me more about that?
This one's all about systematically bringing your attention to each of the 32 parts,
Okay.
seeing their impermanent nature.
It's kind of like a mindfulness anatomy lesson.
Right. And he doesn't shy away from the less glamorous parts either.
Okay.
It's everything from your hair and nails
Yeah.
to your organs, even your, bodily fluids.
Okay. That's a little intense.
It can be,
But why focus on those parts?
because it helps us overcome our biases.
Okay.
We tend to get attached to the parts we think are pretty
Yeah.
and grossed out by the parts we don't like.
He gives the example of hair, right?
Like-
Like we love it on our heads, but freak out if it's in our soup.
Exactly. This practice helps us see all parts of the body with more equanimity,
Right.
without judgment.
So we're not just meditating on these body parts, we're contemplating their impermanence.
Right.
Seeing that they're not me or mine.
You got it. This helps us break free from the illusion of a permanent self
Okay.
and cultivate a sense of detachment from the body.
This is getting deep. What about the 4 elements?
Yeah.
How do they fit into all of this?
Bhante Gunaratana emphasizes understanding these elements,
Okay.
earth, water, heat, air,
Uh-huh.
as a key to deeper mindfulness of the body.
Okay. I'm intrigued, but also a little lost.
Sure.
How do you apply this in real life?
Yeah.
It seems way more abstract than focusing on specific body parts.
It's about recognizing these elements in everything you experience.
Okay.
Like, earth is solidity and stability.
Uh-huh.
Think of your bones. Water is fluidity, like your blood.
Right.
Heat is warmth and energy.
Uh-huh.
And air is movement, like your breath.
So we can go through our day noticing these elements constantly interacting within us
Yes.
and around us.
Exactly. It helps you see how interconnected everything is.
Wow.
How your body isn't separate from the world around you.
This is blowing my mind. I'm really starting to see the richness of all this.
What?
Now, Bhante Gunaratana also talks about mindfulness of death, which
Yes.
seems heavy.
It can feel that way at first,
Yeah.
but the way he presents it,
Uh-huh.
it's not about being morbid or dwelling on negative thoughts.
Okay.
It's actually a tool for appreciating life more fully.
I'm listening.
It's about recognizing that life is finite
Right.
and using that awareness
Mm.
to motivate you to live more intentionally and meaningfully.
He actually shares some of his own close calls with death in the book,
It
right?
does.
Wow.
There are a couple of stories from his youth where he almost drowned.
Yeah.
And those experiences deeply shaped his understanding of death.
Wow, I can only imagine. What did he learn from those experiences?
He realized death can come at any moment.
Right.
So clinging to life just creates more fear and suffering.
Yeah.
It's about accepting the reality of death
Wow.
and focusing on living a virtuous life.
That's profound.
Yeah.
So how do we actually practice mindfulness of death?
He suggests contemplating reflections like death can come at any time, or before I die, I want to overcome my negative qualities.
These are powerful reminders to not waste time on things that don't matter.
Yes,
But I have to be honest,
I
thinking
agree.
about death can be emotionally tough.
It can be. And Bhante Gunaratana acknowledges that.
Yeah.
He stresses the importance of approaching this practice with sensitivity and compassion.
Okay, that makes me feel better. So we've explored mindfulness of the body.
Right.
And what about mindfulness of the mind? Isn't that where a lot of our suffering actually comes from?
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And Bhante Gunaratana dedicates a big chunk of the book to this.
Lead the way, tell me everything.
Well, he starts by saying that directly observing the mind
Yeah.
can be a challenge
Why is that?
because it's constantly moving, flitting from thought to thought, emotion to emotion.
It's like trying to nail down a mind.
Right. So instead of trying to catch it,
Okay.
we pay attention to what it does,
Mm-hmm.
the thoughts, feelings, and mental states it generates.
Okay. Okay, that thing's a bit easier. How do we do that?
He talks about becoming aware of what he calls the 8 pairs of mental states.
8 pairs.
Yeah.
Lay it on me.
The first 4 pairs are like qualities that can be present or absent in any given moment.
Okay.
Greedy or not greedy, hateful or not hateful, deluded or not deluded, and contracted, not contracted, attracted.
So it's about noticing if our mind is caught up in these negative states
Right.
or if it's free from them.
You got it. The other 4 pairs are states we cultivate through practice. Not developed or developed. Not supreme or supreme. Not concentrated or concentrated. And not liberated or liberated.
So these pairs highlight the potential for change through mindfulness.
Yes, we can go from a state of suffering to one of peace and freedom.
Wow.
But let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Okay.
Those first 4 pairs,
Yeah.
especially greed and hatred,
Right.
seem like pretty intense forces to deal with.
They can be, but Bhante Gunaratana gives us practical advice.
Yeah.
He says the key is to use mindfulness to see them arise,
Uh-huh.
recognize they're impermanent, and not get swept away.
Exactly. He also says it's crucial to cultivate their opposites,
Okay.
generosity instead of greed,
Yeah.
loving kindness instead of hatred.
So mindfulness isn't just about noticing.
No.
It's about actively shaping our minds.
You got it. The more we practice, the better we get at managing these states.
Okay.
But I am curious about delusion.
Yeah.
It seems trickier than greed or hatred.
It is subtle. Bhante Gunaratana says it comes from this fundamental misunderstanding of reality, particularly the belief in a permanent, separate self.
Exactly. And he emphasizes that mindfulness,
Okay.
especially observing those 5 aggregates,
Yeah.
is how we uproot this delusion.
Because as we see the aggregates constantly changing,
Yes,
that solid self starts to dissolve.
precisely.
Yeah.
And as the delusion weakens,
Uh-huh.
we become less attached to our thoughts, feelings, everything.
Yeah. This is making so much sense. Now, what about that 4th pair?
Right.
Contracted, distracted versus not contracted, distracted.
Yeah.
What's that all about?
It points to 2 common ways the mind gets stuck.
Okay.
Contraction is when we withdraw into negativity,
Uh-huh.
and distraction is when we're scattered, restless, unable to focus.
So it's recognizing whether our mind is settled or running wild.
Exactly. And Bhante Gunaratana has tips for both.
Okay.
For contraction, he suggests cultivating loving kindness and compassion
Yeah.
to open up the heart.
And for distraction.
Mindfulness of breathing is key.
Okay.
It helps anchor the mind and train it to stay present.
So all these practices, mindfulness of the body, the 5 aggregates,
Right?
the 8 pairs of mental states,
Yes,
they all work together to create a more peaceful mind.
exactly. And as we keep going, we'll see how these practices lay the groundwork for even deeper insights and transformation.
I'm ready for more. Okay, my mind is officially blown.
Yeah.
Mindfulness of the body, mindfulness of the mind.
Right.
The 5 aggregates, the 8 pairs of mental states.
A lot.
It's a lot.
Think of it like building a house.
Okay.
We're laying the foundation
Okay.
for a more peaceful and insightful way of being in the world.
I like that analogy.
Good.
So what comes next? What are we building on top of this foundation?
Bhante Gunaratana talks about some common obstacles that can show up on this mindfulness journey. Things he calls the 5 hindrances.
5 hindrances.
Yeah.
Sounds ominous.
They're not so much ominous as they are well relatable.
Okay.
The first one is desire.
Desire.
We've touched on this, that craving for pleasure, for things to be different than they are.
Okay. Yeah, I can relate to that.
Yeah.
That urge to check my phone every 5 seconds.
Right.
Or constantly wanting the next new gadget.
Yes.
That's desire, right?
Exactly. It pulls us away from the present moment.
Yeah.
Keeps us chasing after something that's always just out of reach.
What's the second hindrance?
Ill will.
Okay.
And this one covers a lot of ground, from mild irritation to full-blown hatred.
Ooh, yeah, I know that one too.
Right.
That frustration I feel in traffic.
Right.
Or when someone cuts me off in line.
Yeah.
And then there's that anger I sometimes hold on to, like when someone really wrongs me.
Exactly. And these negative emotions create so much inner turmoil,
Yeah.
making it difficult to find any peace of mind.
Okay, desire, ill will.
Right.
What's the third hindrance?
This one's a bit of a mouthful.
Okay.
Sloth and torpor.
Sloth and torpor.
Yeah.
Those sound like characters from a children's book.
They might sound cute, but they represent that heavy, dull feeling we get sometimes. Yeah. Like mentally sluggish, low energy kind of blah.
Oh, I know exactly what you mean.
Right.
That mid-afternoon slump when all I want to do is take a nap.
Yeah.
Or those times I sit down to meditate and my mind feels like it's stuck in mud.
That's sloth and torpor.
Okay.
They can make it really hard to focus.
Right.
To do anything that requires mental effort.
All right, 3 down, 2 to go.
Okay.
What's the fourth hindrance?
Restlessness and worry.
Okay.
This is basically the opposite of sloth and torpor.
Right.
The mind is racing, full of anxious thoughts, unable to settle down.
I think we've all been there.
Yeah.
Replaying past mistakes, worrying about the future, just unable to be present.
Exactly. The mind is like a monkey swinging from one anxious thought to the next.
Okay, that brings us to the final hindrance.
All right.
What is it?
Doubt. The
Doubt.
sneaky feeling of uncertainty,
Right.
especially when it comes to mindfulness itself.
Oh, tell me about it.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm meditating and I think, is this even doing anything? Am I doing it right?
That's doubt creeping in.
Right.
And it can undermine our motivation.
Yeah.
Make it hard to trust the process.
Okay, these hindrances are way too real.
They are.
They feel like everyday struggles.
Yeah.
But what can we actually do to overcome them?
Bhante Gunaratana offers some really practical techniques.
Okay.
For desire, he says, to notice its impermanent nature.
Right.
Like that new phone you crave.
Yeah.
It's not going to bring you lasting happiness.
That's like that saying, the thrill is in the chase, not the catch.
Exactly. For ill will, he stresses patience and understanding,
Okay.
remembering everyone is fighting their own battles.
Right.
So maybe that person who cut you off is having a really rough day.
Yeah.
He also suggests practicing loving kindness and compassion.
So instead of getting angry,
Yes,
I can try to send them some good vibes.
exactly. Now, for sloth and torpor, he recommends things that energize you.
Okay.
Deep breaths, splashing cold water on your face,
Yeah.
even going for a walk.
Anything to get the blood flowing and shake off that mental fog.
Yes. For restlessness and worry, good old mindfulness of breathing comes in handy.
Right.
By anchoring your attention to the breath, you can gradually calm the storm.
It's like that feeling of coming home to yourself.
Right. And finally, for doubt,
Okay.
he suggests reflecting on the teachings,
Yeah.
remembering why you started this practice,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe even connecting with other meditators who've been at it for a while.
It's like finding your mindfulness support group.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The point is to not let these hindrances run the show.
Right.
Notice them, understand them,
Yeah.
and then use these skillful means to overcome them.
That's incredibly helpful.
Yeah,
It's like a toolbox for navigating those tricky mental states we all experience.
it is.
But I'm curious, you
Yep.
mentioned earlier that Bhante Gunaratana also explores the roots of these hindrances, right?
He does.
Tell me more about that.
He talks about the 10 fetters,
Okay.
which are these deep-seated mental patterns that keep us stuck in the cycle of suffering.
10 fetters.
Yes,
That sounds serious.
it can be. What are they?
Well, the first 2 are ones we've already talked about.
Okay.
Belief in a permanent self and doubt.
Okay, so those are both hindrances and fetters.
Exactly. They operate on different levels.
Okay.
The hindrances are like the surface weeds,
Right.
while the fetters are the deeper roots we need to address.
Got it. So what about the other 8 fetters?
The third one is attachment to rites and rituals.
So clinging to external practices without cultivating genuine inner transformation.
You nailed it. The next two are also familiar.
Okay.
Sensory, desire, and ill will.
Right.
Again, we've encountered them as hindrances,
Yeah.
but as fetters, they're more ingrained habits.
Okay, so 5 down, 5 to go. What are the
Fine.
next ones?
Number 6 and 7 are desire for existence in the form realm and desire for existence in the formless realm.
Whoa. Those are a bit heady.
They are.
Can you break them down?
They're about our attachment to different states of existence,
Right.
even subtle ones.
Yeah.
It's our deep-seated craving for continuity and our fear of annihilation. So even the desire for a blissful afterlife can be a fetter if it comes from fear or clinging.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
about recognizing what's motivating the desire.
Right.
Now, number 8 is conceit.
Conceit like arrogance.
Essentially, yes.
Okay.
It's that inflated sense of self-importance, the need to be better than others or to prove ourselves right.
I've definitely been guilty of that.
Yeah,
And it can show up even in spiritual context, right?
it can.
Like thinking I'm a better meditator than that person.
Exactly. It's a subtle trap.
Okay.
The 9th fetter is restlessness.
Okay.
Again, it's similar to the hindrance,
Yeah.
but represents a more ingrained pattern of mental agitation.
Right.
And finally, the 10th fetter,
Okay.
the one that fuels all the others,
Uh-huh.
is ignorance.
So ignorance is basically not understanding the true nature of reality.
Exactly.
Right?
It's that blindness to impermanence, selflessness, and interconnectedness that we've been talking about.
Wow, these fetters are a lot to unpack.
They are.
But I'm starting to see how they can really create a lot of suffering.
They can. But the good news is mindfulness gives us the tools to recognize and gradually weaken these fetters.
Okay.
It's about developing wisdom and compassion,
Right.
seeing these patterns clearly
Yeah.
and finding freedom from their grip.
That's incredibly hopeful. It's like mindfulness is a key to unlocking a whole new way of being in the world.
It is.
Now, I remember you mentioning the 7 factors of enlightenment earlier.
Yes.
What are those all about?
These are qualities that, when cultivated, lead to liberation from suffering.
Okay.
They're like the superpowers we develop through mindfulness practice.
Superpowers.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm all ears.
All right.
What's the first one?
The first one is, unsurprisingly, mindfulness.
Mindfulness.
It's the foundation for everything else.
Right. Paying attention to the present moment without judgment.
Yes.
What's next?
Investigation.
Okay.
Using that mindfulness to really examine the nature of reality,
Uh-huh.
especially those 5 aggregates we talked about. It's about gaining deeper insight into how things really are.
So it's not just observing, but also reflecting and understanding.
You got it. The third factor is energy.
Energy.
It's the enthusiasm and effort we bring to the practice.
So showing up consistently for our meditation? And
Yes.
bringing that mindfulness into our daily lives?
Exactly. Now, the fourth factor is joy.
Joy.
And this isn't some forced happiness.
Okay.
It's a natural outcome of understanding and experiencing the benefits of the practice.
So as we cultivate mindfulness,
Yeah.
we naturally start to experience more peace, contentment, maybe even moments of bliss.
Exactly.
Sure.
The fifth factor is tranquility. The deep sense of calm and peace
Okay.
that comes from weakening those hindrances and fetters.
That sounds amazing. Like that stillness we sometimes glimpse in meditation
Right.
can become more and more a part of our everyday experience.
Precisely. The sixth factor is concentration.
Concentration.
This one's about training the mind to stay focused like a muscle.
So we become less easily distracted and more able to stay present.
Yes. And that brings us to the final factor.
Okay.
Equanimity.
Equanimity.
It's that balanced state of mind that allows us to experience all of life.
Okay.
The ups and downs, the good and bad,
Yeah.
without getting swept away.
So we can stay grounded and centered no matter what challenges come up.
You got it. And all of these factors work together to support us on this journey toward liberation.
Wow. It's like we have this inner toolkit for creating a more peaceful and joyful life.
We do.
Now, you mentioned the Four Noble Truths earlier.
Yeah.
How do those fit into this framework?
The Four Noble Truths are the heart of the Buddha's teachings.
Okay.
They lay out the nature of suffering, its cause, and the path to freedom.
Can you refresh my memory?
Sure.
What are those truths again?
The first truth is that suffering is an inherent part of life.
Right?
We all experience it.
Yeah.
Physical pain, emotional pain, loss, disappointment,
Mm-hmm.
and ultimately death.
Right. So acknowledging that suffering is a universal experience.
Yes.
What's the second truth?
The second truth identifies the cause of suffering,
Okay.
craving and attachment.
So it's not the external circumstances themselves that cause us pain, but
Yeah.
our reaction to them,
Big
our
word.
clinging to how we think things should be.
You got it. The third truth is that suffering can end.
Wait, suffering can actually end?
It can.
How?
By letting go of that craving and attachment.
Okay.
It's not about avoiding or suppressing difficult emotions,
Right.
but about changing our relationship to them.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So what's the fourth truth?
The fourth truth is the path to ending suffering,
Okay.
the Eightfold Path.
Oh, right, the Eightfold Path.
Yes.
It's all about right understanding, right thought, right speech.
Exactly. It's a comprehensive path that guides us toward wise action, ethical conduct, and mental discipline.
Wow.
It's about aligning our entire lives,
Yeah.
our thoughts, words, and actions
Mhm.
with wisdom and compassion.
Wow. So it's not just about meditation, but about living a life that's truly in harmony with ourselves and the world around us.
That's exactly it. And by diligently following the Eightfold Path,
Right.
we gradually chip away at those fetters, cultivate those superpowers,
Mhm.
the 7 factors of enlightenment,
Yeah.
and move toward genuine liberation.
This has been an incredible deep dive.
It has.
Thank you so much for sharing these teachings and for helping me make sense of it all.
My pleasure. And I'll leave you with this question to ponder.
Okay.
How might understanding the impermanence of everything, including yourself,
Yeah.
change your approach to daily life and your relationship with suffering?